we bring you the Susie Q. A new dance hit the town. It started getting round. It's something new I found, doing Susie Q. It started like a flame. It's bound to make a name. Come dance your way to fame, doing Susie Q.
Melissa Ritz has been time traveling, and she's brought Ina Ray Hutton back to life in a play called The Bombshell of Rhythm, The Life and Secrets of Ina Ray Hutton. Tell me a little bit about Ina Ray.
So Ina Ray Hutton was the most famous female conductor of an all-girl band, the Melodiers, in the 1930s. And she went on to conduct all-male bands in the 1940s and was the first woman to have her own TV show on NBC in the 1950s. So she had a very long career and a very rich career on the stage of Broadway and the television stage.
And you said vaudeville.
And
right?
vaudeville. She grew up in Chicago, where her mother was a piano player and she was a tap dancer. And like so many people back in the 20s, taking tap dance and on the vaudeville circuit to get their entertainment, a vaudeville producer saw her tap dancing in Chicago.
Because she was a child.
She was 8 years old. Right. She was 8 years old, yeah. And this vaudeville producer saw her tap dancing and said to her mother, I have a children's show in New York, and I'd like to use her. And from there, she went. She danced in a children's show called Future Stars with Gus Edwards.
Are there any films of that or anything of historically that survived of that?
Not that I can find. I would love to see that footage if it's out there, but it might be in some warehouse somewhere, I hope. But the only thing I've seen is a photograph from a newspaper in Chicago called the Chicago Defender when she was a tap dancer. And she's about 7 years old.
Right, a very talented 7-year-old. She had a lot of training early on.
She did. She danced with a tap teacher named Hazel Thompson Davis, who is renowned also for working the Negro vaudeville circuit. It was different. It was for the African American community to perform, and that's where Hazel Thompson Davis performed. And it is rumored that Ina Ray Hutton has biracial ancestry, that she's Caucasian and African American, living on the south side of Chicago, dancing as a young girl with other African American children. So when this vaudeville producer saw her tap dancing, because of her fair complexion, said, I can take this little girl, and the rumor is that she can pass as a white child and have a more viable life economically, socially, financially.
He was not doing it for her benefit. He was doing it for his own.
Of course, I believe for his own benefit, but I think her mother also saw a way for her daughter to have a better life.
Yes.
And in my research that I did, the newspapers always report that her mother was a professional piano player in Chicago, but circumstances prevented her from having a bigger career. And I always wondered what this circumstances was and what this roundabout way of talking about possibly what might have held her back.
So how would it be phrased?
Circumstances prevented her from having a career, her mother having a more viable piano career. Going through all the research, it was like, well, what does this mean in circumstances? And this young girl looks so Caucasian, and her mother is living in Chicago, and they're the south side of Chicago. They're in the African-American newspaper called the Chicago Defender. She's dancing with an African-American teacher. It was a melting pot during the Great Migration at that time, and there were all kinds of people living in the community. But there are rumors throughout Ina's life that this was a part of her history. So I was just trying to weave the story together, and what does all this information lead to? And is she of this African American heritage? And if she is, the challenges that artists faced back then, African American artists faced, to have a career in the spotlight was very challenging and dangerous, especially because they were performing in all these exclusively white clubs. And if you were found out to have any kind of ethnic background, it was a big problem back then. I was crafting the story around, so what's going on? Did Ina really have to... Her name was Odessa Cowan, changed her name.
A great name.
Yeah, Odessa Cowan was her name. And then when this vaudeville producer, Gus Edwards, came in, he changed her name to Ina Ray. And she never looked back. She kept Ina Ray, later Ina Ray Hutton, throughout her career. So the name change was pretty common. People use stage names.
Right. Well, Hutton was a good name for a stage performer in the 1930s because there were a lot of them.
Right. Betty Hutton, her sister June Hutton, carrying off the Woolworth heiress, Barbara Hutton. And it was great publicity because anytime Barbara Hutton was in the news and Ina Ray Hutton's name was in the news, it just brought more attention.
Ina's sister June.
That's right. Who had her own success with the Pied Pipers. She also performed under the stage name Elaine Merritt with the big band, and she married Frank Sinatra's music arranger and appeared on Frank Sinatra's TV show.
So you weave into a little bit of controversy.
Yeah, well, there's rumors out there. It's written in the papers, and people really get caught up in the percentage and how far back does this go, and I understand that, but I also think at the time period when she started out, it was an issue. And I just took my show to Chicago, and I met with the African American side of Ina's family, distant cousins. They came to my show and we spoke and we had a really great conversation just about family history and family secrets. And even she's not really sure what was going on because there were so many cover-ups going on within the family, so many name changes. Ina's mother changed her last name to Hutton. And census records are so tricky. Wording was so different. Birth dates are off. Just want to be authentic to the story I'm trying to tell. And I don't want to misconstrue any information in my research to try to support some grandiose idea. And it really comes down to being as honest as I can about the story and finding out as much as I can. And I've been researching it for over 4 years. And I've been in touch with both sides of Ina's family for smatterings of time throughout that 4 years. And I'm a stranger coming in trying to tell the story, and when it connects with a family and they're trying to protect their family and they don't know the story I'm trying to tell, which Well,
they don't know you.
That's right. They don't know me. They don't know the story I'm trying to tell. It's not an exploitative story. And certainly Ina had many accomplishments regardless of her ethnicity. It's not all about the ethnicity. It's about her accomplishments in music and as a woman in music and entertainment. So I'm being patient with them and whatever they want to share with me, but I really am trying to be as authentic as I can with the story and the research.
Right. What surprises me is how little attention there has been to her.
Yes, I agree. That's why I was so surprised when I stumbled upon her by accident looking for an audition song and saw her tap dancing in a beautiful gown in front of an all-girl band. And she looked so contemporary, but the video was from around 1936. But it could have been filmed today in black and white. Right.
There are films of her earlier, and it's pretty remarkable. I mean, she just jumps right off the film. I mean, it's that magnetism, that power that she has. It just goes through time.
Yes.
And obviously caught you. And in a nutshell, what is it about her that you find so interesting?
Well, just her magnetism, like you said, and she pops off the screen from a video that was from that long ago. I love this era of big band music. Were
you knowledgeable about it before you started digging into this?
No, I wasn't. And I have a background in dance. I studied dance, and I feel obviously a connection with a woman in the arts. And so when I saw Ina singing with an all-girl band and then she started to tap dance, I wondered, why haven't I ever heard of her? Even in my undergrad studies of dance, in dance history and dance education, why had I never heard of Ina Ray Hutton? Who was this woman? So when I Googled her and read about her background and all her accomplishments, I felt like this is a woman who can't get lost to time. She's got a story to tell.
Right.
Yeah, and she's got 6 husbands. She never had any children. I thought she really lived a life.
She had a lot of restraint.
She's got a story to tell.
Right.
And for myself as an actor, wanting to showcase my skills, what better way than to tell a solo show and make it about Ina Ray Hutton?
So it became a transition from an obsession to a stage show. At what point was it a show? I mean, were you thinking about it all? Obviously, the researcher thinking about it all along. At some point, you have to kind of make the jump, right?
Right. So what I did is all this research and all these newspaper archives and ancestry research, and I interviewed people who were connected to Ina in the form of they played music with her in the 30s. I spoke to a few people who are still with us who were in the Melodiers or played with her in Vegas in the 50s.
Wow. So what would they say about playing with her in the 30s?
They said that it was fun. It was a good time. It was the time of their life. Ina knew exactly what she wanted. And at that time, they said she was difficult to work with, meaning I think that she knew exactly what she wanted and she was a perfectionist and had no problem rehearsing until the song or the act was at a level she wanted. She expected a lot. And
Right.
so she was an opportunist, and she took advantage of anything that came her way. And I think there were a lot of jealousies.
She originally was sort of a role. It was a role that she was going to play. She was going to be the band leader of the Melodiers, and she was going to stand in front and look good and be a role model. Not a role model, but she was going to play a role, be an actress. But at some point, that became her.
Right.
And that's an interesting transition, too.
Yeah. And I don't know where that transition happened. Women back then, when they worked with bands, were usually the singer, and they sang in front of the band and then they left. And I think Irving Mills, who conceptualized this idea of Ina Ray Hutton and the Melodiers.
Now, you never spoke with him.
No, I wish I. And his son is still alive and lives upstate. And I haven't been able to get in touch with him. And who knows if his father ever spoke of Ina.
Right.
But who knows what Irving Mills, the formula was, if you will, for what this was going to be. Maybe he did say, I want you to conduct, and you'll sing a couple songs, but maybe it is about the music and these women playing brass instruments. And who knows from there, I think Ina was such a performer, she couldn't help herself. And it evolved from just...
Right, but
performing.
eventually it became her show, not his show.
That's right. And to the point where she bought Irving Mills out of her contract. And she kept her name, and she went on to work with male bands to be taken more seriously.
Right, and played with some of the most notable people of the day. I mean,
Yeah.
So the video that I particularly like was the one with Huey Long.
Yes.
What was going on there?
I don't know what that was about, but he was a controversial politician,
Right.
And she was singing "Every Man a King," and
So obviously to help him be elected.
right, to bring attention to him. And Ina, being the feminist that she was, changed a lyric in there from "every man to be a king, every woman." Yeah, very strong-willed.
And subtle.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great video.
And Huey Long is sitting there going, how would you describe the hand gestures that he was doing? It wasn't like he was conducting, but he was doing some weird conducting with his hands as she was singing the songs. He was facing the other direction.
Right, and he looks like his eyes are rolled up to the side, and he looks like he's conducting, but it's very gamey. Teasing them almost.
Just weird.
Very odd. It's very odd to look at.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
found it disturbing, but
I don't know how that
fascinating.
Yes.
And are there any other weird discoveries like that in your exploration of Ina Ray? 6 husbands.
I was going to say the discovery of the husbands that just kind of came out of the woodwork. Some of them were very short-lived. One was for a day. He was already married, and so she married a married man, but she didn't know that. Another one was a woman who contacted me and said my father was married to Ina Ray Hutton for 6 months. He was a Golden Gloves boxing champion. He lived in Connecticut, and they had this very passionate love affair that ended within 6 months, and she was very young at the time. One of her husbands was violent to her, which made me really sad. There was another husband. There's so many.
It's a lot. It's a lifetime.
Yeah, that some of them were long. And
did she find any solace or any peace in her life?
I hope she did, and I hope at the end of her life she did when she retired from music. I think she was married to her last husband, Jack Curtis, for a number of years, and he preceded her in death. And I really hope that when Ina retired to the suburbs later in her career, that she really did enjoy being married and found someone she loved and was able to be at peace with herself.
In her later days, when she retired, because she had quite a long career, was she active in music or active in any public thing at all?
It's hard to find anything on her. She literally just stopped. And also rock and roll music came in and completely killed the genre of the big band early jazz music as popular music, if you will. Rock and roll really took over. And the last mention that I could find of Ina was at a hotel in the 60s conducting a small quartet. And that's all I can find.
And she died. When did she die?
She died in 1984.
So pretty contemporary.
Yes.
So she spent many years just under the blankets.
Yeah.
Or perfectly happy alive somewhere. Where did she retire to?
Santa Monica, California.
Which is pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was there from her TV show on, so the late 50s on to when she passed away.
So what do you think her legacy is today?
Oh, gosh. I think a lot of people, women in music, owe debt to women like Ina and the Melodiers, all these women playing jazz music, that I think they had to fight for the equality that they wanted and to be taken seriously as musicians and entertainers. A lot of men were calling the shots back then, especially on her TV show, and she really tried to work hard for women to be seen, for women to be respected for their talents.
Right.
And I think that's her legacy.
Yeah. So the show that you have done is in a hiatus. You're waiting for a new opportunity to present. It's one of these shows that you could probably rekindle it every couple of years and have a brand new audience as Ina Ray Hutton's fame and memory grow. I mean, she'll probably have more fans now than she could ever have then. There's a potential of that.
Right, for the exposure and thank goodness for the internet, which is how I found her.
Right.
Her videos are on YouTube, and there's a number of them, and they have thousands of views on them. And part of my promotional push when I was doing my show was putting my flyers up on eBay just to get the word out, because there are collectors of Ina Ray's
So
music.
You've collected a lot of her stuff.
Oh my gosh, I've lost so much. I haven't lost money, but I've spent so much money on her.
Well, you're probably
photos.
spending more money now than you did when you started.
But it's fun. I don't mind it at all, and I'm not complaining.
Right.
I love it. But I did have people reaching out to me by putting my flyers up on eBay. So there's an audience out there, and people are interested in her music.
And you're maintaining a what's it called? A gateway? Not a gateway. What's it called on the web when you have a page? A portal. You have an Ina Ray Hutton portal where you can garner information about her.
bombshellofrhythm.com, which was Ina's nickname, the blonde bombshell of rhythm.
No, but that isn't a name that she gave herself.
No, the media gave it to her.
Right.
And I don't think she appreciated it later in life. She didn't like the bombshell image. She tried to do away with the glamour. She toned down her dresses later. She didn't show as much skin. And then later in life, you see her step away from really singing, and she dropped the tap dancing, and she let other people do the entertaining. She really wanted to be a band leader.
Yes, in some of the video clips that was very evident. You know, the films, she made a lot of films.
She did.
And I wish they were better quality than what you can find on the internet. But some of the films were a little They were shows. They were reviews.
She did movies, and she also did shorts, which were super popular.
But the shows were reviews. In other words, many people would play, and they were sequenced very beautifully and elegantly done. She had great film direction.
Yeah, and I went to the Library of Congress in July and saw some footage of the short, which is beautiful quality on 35 millimeter film that you can't get access to because I don't have the rights to it, but beautiful footage. And I got to watch 7 episodes of her TV show, which was great to see because it's not out there, and so that was a treat.
So you can't see it at the Museum of TV?
No.
Well, that's not something. You got to get it in their archive. Then you could see it.
Well, yeah, if they had it. I've checked everywhere. Hollywood didn't have it. Just the Library of Congress had these videos, and I'm sure they exist with some collectors out there. I did go to Long Island to a man who collects early Americana Broadway musical theater memorabilia, and he has a 35 millimeter film of Ina Ray Hutton tap dancing, and nobody else had this footage. There is a theater in Hollywood that had it in their archives, but it's in such poor condition, it's not able to be viewed. But there's people like this man who I met in Long Island who've got these. So
was there any chance of the public viewing that? I mean, how would if you wanted, you obviously saw it because you reached out, but
right.
But we don't have the pleasure of being able to see that.
Well, I did get a copy of it, and it's up on YouTube, and I recorded it. But yeah, it's not out there otherwise for the public to go to the library and check out or go view anywhere else.
Right. Melissa, where's your website? What is your website called?
The show website is bombshellofrhythm.com.
Right. And so let me ask you, you are clearly not a bombshell. You're a normal person who, when the wand is on, you can become a bombshell.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
It's fun.
But it's not a real thing. You know, a bombshell is not a real thing. It's a made-up thing. When you wave the wand, you could become a bombshell, or Ina Ray Hutton, or anything else a trained actress or someone who's passionate about the art can do.
Yeah, it's the image. I think anybody could have the feeling of being a bombshell, of feeling glamorous and sexy. But as far as when I portray Ina on stage, it's definitely the hair and the makeup and the clothing and the sequins and the way she moved, and yeah. Right,
it's the veil of the theater.
That's right.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's truly magic. What you did with Ina is truly magic.
Thank
you. There's nothing on the foreseeable future that you know of right now that where people can see this. There's nothing coming up like next month or next year.
Not that I have yet. I would love if anybody is interested and they visit the website and they're interested in me bringing the show out. I would love to do that. We could talk about that.
You could.
I could do it. Absolutely. It travels, and I've got all the materials for projection and projecting the video and the sound and all the imagery that I use. And I do tap dance in the show a la Ina Ray Hutton. So the only challenge is trying to find a wooden floor to tap on that I'm not going to slip on. But I've done it at libraries. I've done it at smaller theater venues. And I've done it for 200-seat theaters. So
how far is the play taking you? You've done it here. You've done it in Chicago. You've done it in California.
I'm really grateful. So I moved to New York 2 years ago. And 1 year after I moved here, I opened it at Theater Row at the United Solo Theater Festival. So that's going to be October 4th, almost 1 year ago. And since then, I sold it out 4 times at Theater Row. And I took it to Las Vegas twice this year, to the Hollywood Fringe Festival in LA, Capitol Fringe Festival in Washington, D.C., and the Chicago Fringe Festival in Chicago. And then back to New York, and you recently saw the show at the Soho Playhouse.
Right. So it really is, I think that you'll find that the audience is going to be growing for it. Every time you do it, you'll find new faces and friends. And I think we're in a time when music that hasn't really seen the light of day, as people are craving and hungry for a time when stuff was great.
Absolutely.
And she was great. And it's actually New York is in a resurgence of vintage music. So I think that you're onto something hot. And I think you're going to be doing this. I think you're going to be doing this until you're as old as Ina.
I hope so. I love her story. I love Ina. She did a lot with her life, and it's fun to share her legacy and educate people. And the music is so good. And that's what I love so much about the show is the music is universal and everybody can appreciate it. And I think parents can bring their kids, grandparents can bring the grandchildren, and everybody can go and get something out of it.
There's nothing vulgar about Ina.
No, I don't think so.
Well, nothing that in your show, but, everything else can be left to the imagination.
Right.
All right. And so Melissa Ritz is the actress who played Ina Ray Hutton, and what's the website people can find you at?
bombshellofrhythm.com.
All right, from fringe to who knows where you're going to go. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's the good of moonlight when you haven't got a boy to love? Nighttime's just the time to spoon underneath the silvery moon. Every fellow's happy cuddling neath the stars above. Oh, when the moon is shining, what a heavenly bliss. Look at what you're missing when you can't steal a kiss. So what's the good of moonlight when you haven't got a boy to